Fiscal policy play a significant role in economic growth. It is use of government spending and tax policies to influence economic conditions, especially macroeconomic conditions, including aggregate demand for goods and services, employment, inflation, and economic growth. Fiscal policy is contrast with monetary policy, which is enacted by central bankers and not elected by government officials. During cyclical downturns, fiscal expansion can help strengthen aggregate demand and growth. On the other hand, fiscal contraction can cool down an economy that is growing at a sustainable rate. Fiscal policy have a significant impact on long and medium-term economic growth. This is especially true in developing countries with a weak and undeveloped private sector. Furthermore, taxes can stifle growth by distorting economic incentive and behavior. Corporate income tax, for example, have a detrimental influence on investment. Fiscal policy deliberate changes in government spending and taxes is designed to achieve full employment, control inflation, and encourage economic growth. To help stabilize the economy, the government should run large budget deficits during economic downturns and run budget surpluses when the economy is growing. They are known as expansionary or contractionary fiscal policies. Expansionary fiscal policy is used to combat a recession. The problem during a recession is that aggregate demand is too low, so increasing government spending and reduction in taxes will increase aggregate demand. Expansionary fiscal policy will create a deficit.
When demand pull inflation occur, contractionary policy is the remedy. The problem with inflation is that aggregate demand is too high, so the government will decrease government spending or increase taxes to cause aggregate demand to fall. When the government uses contractionary fiscal policy, it will create a surplus.
More now on Malaysia's budget and what it means for business and tax. The government has allocated 332 billion ringgit, or roughly $80 billion, to drive economic recovery. That is the most it has ever spent in a year. It's banking on tax collections to fund the bulk of the budget and reckons economic growth will accelerate next year to between 5.5% and 6.5%.
The cyclically adjusted budget is the budget that would occur if the economy were operating at full employment. The cyclically adjusted budget is also referred to as a full employment budget. Economists use the cyclically adjusted budget to evaluate the expected influence of any change in tax or spending policy on economic growth. It begins by determining what the budget deficit or surplus would be if the economy is at full employment or long-term equilibrium. When the cyclically adjusted budget is balanced, fiscal policy is neither expansionary nor contractionary, even if the economy is running a budget deficit or surplus. The deficit or surplus result from business activity below or above the full employment level. A fiscal policy is expansionary when there is a cyclically adjusted deficit and contractionary when there is a surplus in the cyclically adjusted budget.
Malaysia's government is leading a fiscal policy initiative, the first of which is an economics package. The first program in the economic package is special income tax relief, which will offer eligible individuals with up to 1,000 ringgit Malaysia for unrestricted expenses. The second program is the development of monthly tax payments, which tourism-related businesses are eligible for a 6-month delay in monthly tax payments. The change of monthly tax payments is the third program. They are able to alter their monthly tax for the third installment payment month. The fourth program is the special direction on cost of renovation and refurbishment, which allows businesses to deduct up to 300,000 ringgit in restoration and refurbishment expenses. The last program is a reduction in the minimum employee contribution to the EPF, which reduces the rates from 11% to 7% and allows the employee to just contribute 11%.
During the pandemic, the government announced the Prihatin Rakyat Economic Stimulus Package. This package gives help to anyone who is impacted by COVID-19 pandemic, especially those who are most vulnerable. In Prihatin Rakyat Package, there are 3 goals which are protecting the citizens, supporting businesses, and strengthening the economy. This package totally amounted to 250 billion ringgit that will benefit all citizens in Malaysia. Under objective number 1, which is protecting the citizens, Bantuan Prihatin Nasional amounted to 10 billion ringgit will benefit nearly 9 million households and individuals in Malaysia. Besides, the government also provides assistance to the vulnerable groups through NGO amounting to 25 million ringgit for senior citizens, children in shelters, disabled people, orang asal, homeless and others. Under Objective 2, which is supporting businesses, the government gives support by making a guarantee scheme amounting to 50 billion ringgit. It is a guarantee of up to 80% of total loans with a minimum amount guaranteed at 20 million ringgit. Besides, the government with banks cooperation also provides 6 months loan moratorium amounted to 100 billion. Under the last objective, which is strengthening the economy, one of the planning is government provides 2 billion ringgit to implement small projects since government focus on impactful domestic investment activities, high multiplier and employment.
Limited fiscal space is one of the challenges of fiscal policy. Fiscal space, according to Heller, is a headroom in the government's project to provide resources for a desired aim without risking the government's financial state or the economy's stability. As we all know, the impact of COVID-19 on the economy is not encouraging, given the government's limited budgetary capacity as a result of running budget deficits for more than 2 decades. As a result of the pandemic's unprecedented severity, there are insufficient public finances to dig into, limiting public investment expansion and reducing export-led growth. It has put the government under strain because Malaysia's fiscal position has deteriorated as a result of a reduction in household income and corporate profitability across numerous sectors of the economy. Because the government lacks sufficient public funds, tax revenue is projected to decline. It got worse when the government decided to take 5 billion from the National Trust Fund on April 26 to buy vaccines and cover costs associated with the National Immunization Program. And the administration was criticized for being incompatible with the fund's mission as a result of this decision.
Defisit belanjawan Malaysia diunjurkan meningkat kepada 5.8 hingga 6%. Dan tahap hutang kita pada masa ini lebih kurang 52% mungkin akan mencecah had berkanun 55% pada akhir tahun ini. Ini adalah berikutan pelaksanaan langkah-langkah prihatin dan penjana untuk menyelamatkan nyawa dan penghidupan dan merangsang ekonomi.
The total amount of annual budget deficits incurred by federal government, the government spends more time on debt repayment, therefore, the GDP ratio rises and making repayment more difficult. Malaysia's statutory debt will be 820.7 billion, which is 58% of GDP. As a result of the pandemic, it may rise up to 60%. As a result of high national debt, it reduces investor confidence and government response time.
Taxation is an important role because it provides the government with a reliable and flexible stream of revenue. It is also a key aspect in determining a country's ability to repay its debt. For poor and middle-income countries, tax capacity is a top priority for a long-term growth. Tax reform can help to optimize the economies and social benefits by increasing tax capacity. It has also assisted in the reduction of tax evasion and avoidance, as well as the increase of long-term revenue and economic growth. In compared to GST, where the SST rate fluctuates from 6% to 12% and applies exclusively to manufacturers and customers, SST is less transparent than GST, which has a constant rate of 6% and applies to everyone.
Fiscal policy played a significant role in assisting the country in regaining economic stability. It includes both governmental expenditure and the structures and level of taxation, which are independent entities yet intertwined. It influences stability and economic growth of a country, whether in the short or long term, through various program implementation.